Hi, and welcome to You Ask Pei-I Answers. Today, I'm going to answer another challenge the families are experiencing at home with their teenage children, in particular with teenage children with ADHD, their impulsivity and emotional regulation. But before I dive in to share my thoughts and some strategies for you to try, as usual, I'm going to share my family health warning, my disclaimer. If this is the first time you're tuning in to watch my video, it's really important for you to know when I'm providing strategies and insight, there's always a family context to think about. But given I'm not able to think about your family context, it's down to you as a parent or as a family to think about whether the strategy I share fit into your family context and your family circumstances or your family unique blueprint. And if they don't, simply move on to the next video, and you don't have to apply for the strategies. It's really important you learn to self-select, to think, actually, this really fits into my family context. Maybe I can try a little bit less and to see how you work out. Okay, so that is the family health warning side of things. Now let's think about, teenage children with ADHD, their impulsivity and the emotional regulation. But if you know what, before you even think about this, impulsivity and emotional regulation is a shared challenge among teenagers, regardless whether you have ADHD or not, right? So, but in thinking about teenage children with ADHD, I think about there's three reasons. I'm just going to highlight three reasons in terms of their emotional regulation side of things. Well, number one, because their prefrontal cortex is still maturing. Now, I said it again in many of my videos. This is the stage where teenage children's brain is getting reconstructing and developing. And throughout human life cycle, there are only two stages our brain will be reworked through and redeveloped. And that is the first one is the birth, the second one is teenage years. And you can imagine how important this stage of life is for your teenage children. So now that's one of the reasons why they're struggling with the control impulse, because the brain is still developing, and that's why they're struggling to regulate the emotions, because the brain is still developing. The second one is the heightened emotions for teenagers, right? Even it's just more heightened with teenage children with ADHD, but this is a common struggle for among teenagers. And again, coming back down to the brain development, they are struggling to recognize how they're feeling, what they're going through, and or knowing what feelings they're actually experiencing and what upset them, what disappoint them, what make them, feel ashamed, what make them feel guilty. So there's a lot of feelings, and with it, teenage, like I say, with teenage children with ADHD is more heightened. Well, the third challenge is the communication, right? It's really difficult to tell you how they're feeling or what the decision they want to make. And it's more likely they're gonna have an outburst of anger, like whether it's verbally or physically, because they just couldn't communicate and recognize and process the feelings they're going through just now. So, in order to help your teenage children to regulate their emotions, it's really important for you to think about how you can help them to increase the emotions literacy and the awareness. And that includes thinking about their feelings and naming their feelings. What sort of behavior comes with a feeling? Because sometimes we get confused. I might be hungry, but then I might present as sad or aggressive, but actually deep down I was just hungry, right? So it's really important to educate your teenage children with ADHD, thinking about, okay, what sort of the feelings are you experiencing or may experiencing at this current time being a teenager? And I mean, we experience all these feelings too, not just your teenage children. Then you want to think about, so when you're feeling happy, what sort of the behavior comes with feeling happy? And when you're sad, what sort of behavior is associated with feeling sad? And when you're feeling like this, what can you do? How can you work through the feelings? Is it about talking to someone? Is it about writing things down? Is it about recording, which I asked the the parents and teenagers to do very often is record in the phone and saying how they feel, and they're like, I am feeling really upset because this XYZ happened, and it's really, really helpful. So it is about teaching your children, your teenage children, with teach your children with the increasing their emotions awareness, sort of English, just like skate me there. So you want to teach them that what are the feelings, associated with the behavior, how can I work through, and what are the strategies I can do to work through? Like I say, is it speak to someone else, or is it to write down the journal, or is it just speak to a friend or to a teacher or to yourself as a parent? And that is really, really important. And the other part that I cannot stress enough is to model your emotional literacy. You can model how you recognize your behavior, your emotions, how do you work through it, and how do you make sense of those feelings. You can do that for your teenage children. One thing helps a lot is to name your teenage children's feeling. Okay, with ADHD or no ADHD, just name the feelings. You look really upset. You seem a bit angry earlier. I can see you are really, really hurt by the comments your friends made, over the phone. So that is really important to think about that. Right, so that is thinking about the emotional regulation side of things. Now let's think about the impulsivity. And again, I cannot stress enough, whether you're teenage children with ADHD or teenage children without ADHD, impulsivity is part of the teenage development. However, it's just more heightened in the teenage children with ADHD. What will be helpful is to have a structure boundary for your teenage children so they know what is within the limit, right? What are the boundaries for them? It makes it easier for them to control their impulse, because they will have to go think, oh, right, when I make this decision, there's going to be a consequences here, or they're going to be a life consequences here, right? And if I make that decision, actually, I might get incentive and rewards and praise for that. So you want to continue to have consistent boundaries and limits for your teenage children. And it's really important for you to have structure for your teenage children. And like I say, the sleep in another video, the sleep, the exercise, talking about feelings, these are really important, because then you can help them to manage the stress, then reduce the impulsivity and lash out of feelings. The other thing what you can do is really helpful is you can sit down with your teenage children where you think is possible. Then you can think about the circumstances, the situations, and the scenarios that make them more likely to be impulsive or make impulsive decisions, right? That could be in school. That could be when they go out with their pals. That could be, I don't know, in the family home when certain siblings is around. So you want to be thinking about the scenarios and situation with your teenage children in terms of what are more likely to make them more impulsive. And then what you want to think about is, okay, so these are the scenarios and situations or circumstances that will make me more impulsive. And then when I make a decision being impulsive, what are the positive consequences, subsequent consequences from that? What are the negative subsequent consequences from that? And are they going to be harmful or hurt? Are they going to hurt anyone, myself or people around me, to when I make that decision? And the reason this is really important for you to do this exercise with your teenage children with ADHD, because they naturally lack of consequential thinking, right? So when you're thinking through the scenarios with them, you're actually teaching them the consequential thinking. So when you drive, at the speed of limit speed, 90 miles per hour, you're more likely to have an accident. And what will be the consequences for that? When you actually drive over, you might get a ticket, you might get fined, you might lose your license, you might go to court, and you might actually get in a really bad accident. So you want to think about this with your teenage children, along with the limits and the boundaries, which can help them to control their impulsivity and make better and informed decisions. And remember, as I say many, many times, when you're working with teenage children, when you're speaking to your teenage children, it's not about one big chunk of conversation. You need to think about multiple conversations throughout, a few weeks' time or a week. Okay, so just think about small chunk. Today you might be thinking about, let's think about the scenarios when situation where you're more likely to make impulsive decisions that is gonna hurt yourself and hurt other people, or that you make impulsive decisions that might lead to positive consequences. So you want to have steps to talk about that with your teenage children. And you know what? I always tell the parents and share with the parents, it's a really good thing to do with your teenage children, because then you also foster your time together. If we can make this conversation really lighthearted, coming from a place that is really inclusive, very collaborative, your teenage children will enjoy this too. All right, I hope I just have answered your question today and tried the strategies out if you have self-selected thinking that fit into your family circumstances. Otherwise, move on and don't try any strategy. I'd rather you just don't try any strategies than trying strategies that don't work for your family, which is really important. All right, I will see you in the next video. Bye.